We now have Hurricane Laura tracking into the Gulf a little bit earlier than expected. All signs point to a major hurricane landfall as of right now, southwestern Louisiana or southeastern Texas. Welcome back, my friends. Things are heating up. It is August 25th, 2020, 9:23 a.m. Yes, we're in the a.m. hours right now. Take a look at this. Laura has already become a hurricane. We're at 75-mile-an-hour sustained winds, dropping pressure to 991 millibars. We're moving west-northwest at 17 miles an hour. Now, really quick, I want you to take a look at where they expect Laura to make this landfall. This has now been changed to a major hurricane landfall. That is anything from a Category 3 and higher. I could easily put wind speeds between 111 and 130 miles an hour, even higher if we reach Cat 4, which is 131 to 155. With that will absolutely come a massive storm surge, around 10 feet of storm surge, and if we are keeping on that same path and we're expecting an western landfall at the border for Louisiana and eastern landfall for Texas, both of these states will have significant flooding and significant damage due to the inpush of water that's going to be coming due to the counterclockwise spin. We've seen it happen in Louisiana and in Texas with Harvey, Louisiana with Katrina, and we just saw Marco make its mark on Mississippi and Alabama and the panhandle of Florida as a small storm. Now, just imagine a major hurricane. This is what people fail to understand sometimes, is that just because it's a Category 1 or 2 storm, I could just stay home and suck it up. That's not how it works, guys. That's how people get hurt, and this storm is making out to be a very big hurricane. We have gone right over that eastern edge of Cuba, which we expected to happen, and then this thing became a flourished hurricane right away. As of right now, take a look at the amount of rain Laura is bringing with it, and you can see in this spot right here, just in western Louisiana, right on the border there, you could see anywhere from 7 to 10 inches of rain. I guarantee it will be higher than that, especially if we're dealing with a major hurricane, especially of this size. And by size, we mean basically the size of this storm at landfall. If it's hard for you to see the border, here is my mouse by the border of Louisiana, and here is now Hurricane Laura just passing the eastern edge of Cuba, now basically parallel with the Keys in Florida, I guess you could say, maybe a little bit further south than that, but we can clearly see that counterclockwise spin, those big, huge storms rumbling up through the middle. This storm will get stronger, and very, very shortly. We may see this thing even reach Category 2 status as early as today. Now, if this thing rises about 30 miles per hour in wind speed in about 24 hours, that's grounds for what they call rapid intensification, and I really do believe this storm will go through that. There is nothing stopping this storm from taking its exact path as projected and becoming a major hurricane at landfall. Minimal shear wind, just bath water to get stronger in as a hurricane. Laura has already strengthened with interaction with land, so we know it can survive that. It is big enough. It's a very, very wide storm. And as you can see with the model intensity guidance chart, we have many, many models putting this as a major Category 3 and even some in Category 4 range. That is strictly because we are looking at a storm that has plenty of room to go before it gets to any sort of landfall. It doesn't look like it's going to hook to the east. It looks like it's really going to stay to that western motion with the pressure in the Bermuda Atlantic and the different pressures coming down from the jet stream itself in the U.S. My friends, this is the type of storm you absolutely want to prepare for. I'm not giving any specific directions to people in Texas, Louisiana, even Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida all need to be on edge for this storm. As we know, these storms can take any sort of turn. A third of the time, these storms end up outside of the cone of uncertainty. That's what this big white cone area is. That's the uncertainty chart. They don't know if it's going to land somewhere over here or maybe over here, but a third of the time, it lands outside this chart. That is why you're seeing the hurricane warnings extending to the eastern part of Louisiana as well. These may shift back and forth over the next day or two, depending on what shifts happen within Laura itself as a storm, and that will determine which part of the landfall we're going to be looking at and where it's going to be. These are the current spaghetti plots, and as you can see, the bulk of them have them right in western Louisiana, almost on the border of Texas and Louisiana. We got one extending out far to the west. We had one, this pink one here was actually kind of breaking off on its own and hitting central to eastern Louisiana, and that has tucked back in, and now we have a pretty good idea of where this storm's going to go, and that is why they're issuing those warnings and evacuations already for Louisiana and Texas. And I can't stress this enough that this is going to be a major hurricane, a major natural disaster type event. We have to take it seriously, especially those in Texas and Louisiana. You need to take these warnings seriously, and especially the evacuation orders. This is going to be an absolute nightmare on the coast of whatever state this thing hits and outside of it. We got to understand the tropical storm wind speeds or the hurricane wind speeds extend out about 50 to 75 miles, sometimes more, out from the center of the storm. And we're going to see a pretty defined eye soon. After this completely clears Cuba and it gets itself settled in the Gulf here, we're going to see a nice eye form in this hurricane. And as it gets stronger, it's going to get tighter and tighter. And you're going to see those lower level clouds being pulled in that counterclockwise direction, and that is why we're going to see water being pushed in on the upper east side of the storm is where that water gets pushed into land, and then it gets pulled out on the other end because of that counterclockwise convection spin we get in the northern hemisphere. These types of storms are the ones we call monsters because of the organization it already has at the beginning of its trip through the Gulf of Mexico. That is why that major category status is being put on it, and chances are this will become a major hurricane. The biggest one we've seen this year by far, and that is why people need to take it very seriously. I will have many updates on this storm. I'll have another one later on today, and I'm going to start doing double videos to cover the different National Hurricane Center updates for this storm, specifically Hurricane Laura, which has just entered the Gulf after clipping the eastern edge of Cuba, and now we're expected to see a rapid intensification of this storm in all ways. That's pressure, that is storm surge upon landfall, and then it's also wind speed, which we could be accessing 120 to 130 miles an hour upon landfall. My friends, thank you so much for tuning in. It's an early morning for me, so I'm going to get on this and have an afternoon update for you. If you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps here, and I appreciate every single one of you. Please leave your comments and concerns down below, and I will get to them as I can. I'll be back with another update soon, guys. Thank you so much. Shout out to Canada.